Okay, do you hear me? Is that everything okay with my voice? Okay. Thank you for joining us at this meeting. Today's webinar, we are going to talk about managers' risks about 14001 standard about environmental aspects. Let me make a brief introduction to CFE certification. That is, CFE certification is an independent auditing company accredited by UCAS and IAS, operating in many countries. CFE certification is a member of the British Education Accreditation Authority CPD certification service. CFE certification is also a member of the Association of British Certification Bodies. As CFE certification, we provide gap analysis, training, audit, and certification services in many areas, such as information security, business continuity, IT service management, quality management, GDPR, personal data management systems. So when you need any assistance about certification systems and educational webinars and trainings about making improvement on your systems, you can contact CFE certification. Yes. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about managing risk and identifying opportunities with ISO 14001 certification. All organizations face uncertainty, actually, whether that's from internal factors, the changing political or economic landscape, the impact of technological innovation, or changing customer needs. How you address this uncertainty can influence and even determine success. Risk-based thinking is at the heart of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001, these management systems, giving organizations all over the world a non-perspective yet structured approach to the issues that are most likely to impact them. During this webinar, we will share their insight from over 15 years in the field to help you understand more about how risk-based thinking can drive improvement and identify opportunities in your organization, as well as how it's evaluated through the certification process. Before starting this webinar, I would like you to note that you will have a little simple quiz at the end of the webinar. So you're going to take a certification of this webinar as well. I'm sure you know, but I would like to give a brief information about the standard ISO 14001. Actually, this standard was first published at 1994, and nowadays it gets much more crucial improvement and importance about due to sustainability and environmental impacts. ISO 14001 is a series of environmental management standards. So it is published by ISO, and this standard provides guidelines and frameworks for organizations that need to systemize and improve their environmental management efforts. Environmental management efforts get much more importance for these days, for environmental impacts, for sustainability cases and studies. So the standard gets much more important. And like many ISO standards, based on ISO 9001, with changes and additions that focus on environmental management. The main difference is that this standard is focusing on environmental management systems. That is the main difference between these two standards, because ISO 9001 is a total quality management system, while 14001 is an environmental management system. So as I told you, a sustainable approach gets much more important, and green transformation is one branch of that. Green transformation strategies that are green growth strategies, which are created under different names, such as green economy, low emission, low carbon, and climate resistant development plan, may vary depending on the political and institutional structure of the countries. The level of development, resources owned, and environmental effects. When country examples are examined, it's seen that the green transformation strategy development and implementation processes show similar characteristics and include common steps. So greenhouse gas, pollutant emissions, reductions, industrial growth, and the governmental rules are very important while making decisions about environmental effects. So there is an integration of quality and sustainability, actually. As you know, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, there are the development goals which are involved, integrated with environmental management systems. For example, the Sustainable Development Goal 11 and 13 is directly in relationship with environmental management systems. Sustainable cities and communities, climate action is also related with these standards. Environmental impact of cities and communities, zero energy usage, and recycling gets much more important. And in the screen, you see the standard names, which are in relationship with sustainable development goals, actually. So environmental management system is very important for the future of the Earth's survival. Now, if we go back to our agenda, I would like to return to you on ISO 14001 life cycle. Here is on the screen a life cycle perspective, actually, and why including life cycle perspective in the standards. So what's a life cycle? And why include this life cycle assessment and this circulation on this standard? According to ISO 14001, a systematic approach to environmental management can provide top management with information to build success over the long term and create options for contributing to sustainable development by controlling or influencing the way the organization's products and services are designed, manufactured, distributed, consumed, and disposed by using a life cycle perspective that can prevent environmental impacts from being unintentionally shifted elsewhere within the life cycle. So this is a circularity about the life cycle assessments of the system, from raw material to the end of the product and final disposals. Is a life cycle assessment a requirement in ISO 14001? Yes, this is a question, but it's not a requirement actually. Uh, so it's not a requirement as clearly stated in Annex to ISO 14001 A612. What this annex tells us, when determining environmental aspects, the organization considers a life cycle perspective. This does not require a detailed life cycle assessment. Thinking carefully about the life cycle stages that can be controlled or influenced by the organization is sufficient. Typical stages of a product life cycle include raw material acquisition, design, production, transportation and delivery, usage, and of the life treatment, and final disposal. The life cycle stages that are applicable will vary depending on the activity, product, or service. So there is a practical help about life cycle perspective. Guidance from ISO 14004 is that practical help about life cycle perspective and assessment. A life cycle perspective includes consideration of the environmental aspects of an organization's activities, products, and services that it can control or influence. Stages in a life cycle include acquisition of raw materials, design, production, transportation and delivery, use, end-of-life treatment, and final disposal. The organization can consider those stages in the life cycle over which it has the greatest control or influence, as these may offer the greatest opportunity to reduce resource use and minimize pollution or waste. So the length of the supply chain, the technological complexity of the product is very important. The stages in the life cycle and product and the service makes the cycle much more understandable. So we need these information step by step. So the following should be considered directly. Here on the screen are the core principles in ISO 14001. There are 6 key elements of the standards: environment policy, planning, implementation, study and correction, management review, and continuous improvement. When we talk about such key elements in detail, here is the first one: environment policy. For the environment policy, it requires an organization to outline its environmental policy. An organization must determine business objectives and targets based on its environment policy. So there should be an environmental policy that the organization should follow up. ISO 14001 standard incorporates the principle of sustainable development and performance indicators associated with EMS. The organization needs to establish effective communication, internal and external, to ensure ISO 14001 certification compliance. Then comes the planning. Designing plans and strategies for implementing the environment management system, EMS. So effective planning and implementation help an organization assess the environmental impacts of business operations. Planning helps organizations identify compliance requirements and document targets and objectives. So planning is the second step, which has a crucial importance. Then comes the implementation. Executing a plan efficiently and effectively is much more valuable than formulating it. It incorporates adjustments and builds new processes and procedures to adapt to changing requirements. An organization requires defining, documenting, and communicating the implementation processes to give necessary training to employees. It also includes emergency response, planning, and preparation. So then study and correction step comes. After implementing the environmental management system, the organization measures its performance and focusing on optimizing it, because nothing with measuring is nonsense, actually, not important. So the key indicators, KPIs, should be measurable. It involves reviewing and evaluating existing and new procedures to ensure KPIs are achieved, and the effectiveness of EMS is also measured. So after that studying and correction actions, and management, the top management should have a review on that. A management review is a formal evaluation of the effectiveness of the organization's environmental management system. It's one of the most important, significant elements, actually, as it ensures that everything is functioning within the determined scope. It takes into account any new environmental issue, legislation, and changing circumstances. So these circumstances and changes should be adapted to the system. And it will require a continuous improvement. Continuous improvement enables an organization to optimize all aspects of the system and ensures the EMS utilizes principles of continuous improvement. The principle of continuous improvement follows the plan, doing, checking, and acting cycle, actually, to improve business processes and procedures. So these are the key elements that are making this standard very well and smooth working. These steps each should be followed. There are some other useful standards that can be integrated of this ISO 14001 environmental process. So on the screen, you see the integration of the related standards, actually. The internationally recognized ISO 14001 standard follows so-called the high-level structure. The basic structure is based on the uniform use of outlines, terminology, and definitions. As a result, ISO 14001 certification can be combined with other certified standards as integrated management system with ISO 9001 and ISO 45001 occupational health and safety processes. To do this, firstly, you should conduct a gap analysis to identify similarities and differences between the standards and your current practices. Then create a common policy, objectives, and processes that address all these three standards and align with your strategic direction. Assigning the roles and responsibilities for the integrated system, document and communicate it to relevant parties, monitor its performance, measure its effectiveness on environmental, quality, and safety outcomes. Then review it through audits, take corrective or preventative actions if needed. So you will see the effectiveness of this combination of this integrated management system. Then how the standards address risk and opportunities. The ISO 31000 standard uses the principles of risk management and you are familiar with that penalties and to address risk and opportunity that now you will. Our MS and 14001 standard itself. Why for the risk analysis, but it applied in past versions of ISO 14001. For instance, the need to determine significant aspects. Is that okay? Do you hear me? Hope you can hear me now. Okay, then. Sorry for the miscommunication. I'm going to just continue about this. Yes. How the standard address risk and opportunities. The ISO 31000 standard deals with the principles of risk management, and obviously, if you are familiar with this, then it will prove to be of assistance. But let us look at how we can practically address risk and the resulting opportunity, especially within our EMS and the 14001 standard itself. While the need for risk analysis was implied in past versions of the standard, for instance, the need to determine significant aspects, formal identification of opportunities is new in the last version of the standard. So what exactly are the requirements related to risk and opportunities? The standard requires identification of risk and opportunities and planned actions to address them. These risks and opportunities can stem from your environmental aspects, compliance obligations, and needs and expectations of interested parties. ISO 14001 does not specify how risk and opportunities should be recorded and managed. However, it does require documented plans for addressing risk and at least some of the opportunities. So the opportunities can be documented in the environmental aspects register or listed with your environmental objectives. So it is making the process working for you. The most suitable process steps should be integrated with your management system. Assessing risk and opportunity within an EMS is of crucial importance, with prevention being better than cure in environmental terms, where there is often no way of preparing the damage an incident does after occurrence. Having a team that is focused on risk and prevention can go a long way towards mitigating environmental risk, but only supported by the correct processes within the environmental management system. Ensure compliance terms are always met and a great portion of risk will be reduced. Ensuring that all risk assessments are recorded, actioned, measured, and improvement action should be taken. Make risk and opportunity a staple of the mindset of the team. A team that is focused on risk and opportunity is a team that can proceed over continual improvement, and that result will be of benefit to your organization and the EMS. So that is the most sustainable system while improving a continuous improvement on your system, adapting a continuous improvement. Unlike risk, opportunities do not require formal risk management or a documented risk management process. You may, however, choose to prioritize your opportunities and action those that offer the most benefit to your organization or the environment. Changes in risk and opportunities need to be included in management reviews, documented, and any resulting actions adequately resourced. Activities should be monitored with risk assessment meetings at regular periods. So a target-oriented and risk-based approach should be followed in this management system. The inputs to management review shall be recorded. Fulfillment of objectives is very important. Sustainability of policies and procedures should be managed. And adequacy of resources is very important. So the management by objectives, strategic planning, and risk management are the key points of this target-oriented and risk-based approach. So there should be a continuous improvement culture at your organization. The staff should participate in the meetings, the actions. Fair and transparent approach should be followed by the management. Implementation and monitoring is very important to see how the management system works and how the results are finalized in your system and organization. So providing management support and collaboration of the staff is the key point, I can say, because in your organization, if there is no collaboration of the staff, it won't give the effective management system. So the system will be non-effective maybe, and so you're not going to see the results effectively actually. I would like to thank you by attending to this webinar. We are going to send you little quizzes, basic quizzes about this standard. So we personally keep ourselves up to date by receiving training on these issues. If you have more questions and want to get information, our technical staff will be pleased to assist you. And you can have directly email communication, and via social media, you can reach CFE certification. Thank you for attending this webinar. Thank you very much for your participation. If you have any questions, I'm going to be pleased to answer you, or you may type your questions via chat if you like. So here is the link of quiz. And you can inform us for further assistance needed. Thank you. Thank you for the participation.